So Lev Vygotsky and Jean Piaget were instrumental in our field in understanding how children grow and develop and why starting early is so important. They taught us, and they got the psychological field thinking about critical and sensitive stages of development. So, for example, the first 24 months of life is a critical stage in attachment, in being able to attach to a primary caregiver. The first 6 years of life is incredibly important for language acquisition. The first 10 and 12 years of life is very important for the development of higher level reasoning skills. And what resilience and systems theory tells us is that doing different things at different times has different outcomes. And we can get to the nuts and bolts just by understanding that we need to do things as early as we can. And that is the first point of the compass, which is start early, okay? There's different ways of considering starting early. So starting early can also be, not putting off a difficult conversation that you need to have, right? Making sure you nip it in the bud, making sure that different programs or classroom expectations are established right off at the beginning, right? There's lots of different ways to consider how start early would be important. And I have both in Russian and in French, the original publication from Vygotsky and Piaget, where they shared with the community their groundbreaking ideas. Now, after Jean Piaget were what was called neo-Piagetins. And one of the most famous neo-Piagetins was Robbie Case. And he was a professor at OISE when I was there, at the University of Toronto at OISE when I was there. OISE stands for the Ontario Institute for Studies and Education, and it's the graduate school. So when you think of like the Gustafson School of Business at UVic, Gustafson is the name of the faculty. At the University of Toronto, the Graduate School of Education is named OISE. Robbie Case was from Stanford and he worked at OISE, and he really helped us to understand the importance of making links and connections between concepts for children. When a child is taught something new and it's connected to something that they've already been taught, like this is similar to or opposite from or just like, okay, what that does is it expands their working memory. Jean Piaget taught us that we have, on average, about 7 kind of spaces, 7 kind of holding cells of working memory. Some children have less. Children with learning disabilities or intellectual disabilities, fetal alcohol syndrome, would have less, and some have more. Robbie Case taught us that by making links and connections, that 7 spaces could become 14, could become 21. So the incredible importance of scaffolding instruction. Lev Vygotsky taught us about zones of proximal development. So the zone of proximal development means what the child can do with a little bit of help, okay? So if we are trying to do an intervention or a lesson with a child that they completely have already mastered, that's going to be way below the zone of proximal development. And the child will be bored. It won't be engaging. It won't be meaningful to them. Similarly, if the intervention or the lesson is way harder than what the child is able to do, the child may experience learned helplessness, may just shut down, give up, okay? So the zone of proximal development is that sweet spot, and we can tell that a child is there because they can do it with a little bit of help. So with a little bit of guidance, they're able to do it. And that's how we know we've got the right spot. So Lev Vygotsky and Jean Piaget were the ones that taught us about the importance of early intervention. And that is the first point of the compass. Don't wait for an assessment to begin remediation. Like kids can sit on wait lists for assessments for a long time, right? We shouldn't wait. We should just jump in and do what we think they need while we're waiting for a designation or for some information. And don't hesitate to refer kids for assessment before grade 3. You know, there's what we do at MindKey is if we think a child in grade 1 or 2 might have a learning disability, we phrase it as may have a learning disability. And we recommend certain intervention, and we invite the parent and the child to come back 1 year later for free to do reassessment to see if they've made growth, if there's been response to intervention. And if after that reassessment, they've caught up, we're good. If they still show challenges, then we can recommend a designation. But families aren't going to waste money if they have a child assessed early. We must address challenges as early as possible, okay? And that's any kind of challenge, whether it's a social tension, a learning challenge, a colleague to colleague challenge, a teacher to parent challenge. We must always address challenges as early as we possibly can. And we need to encourage others to do the same. Okay, so that is the concept of start early. So the key takeaways are: use the compass to navigate situations, start early, and development creates openings in the system that allow us to foster resilience.